Welcome to the fourth tutorial for Procedural Studio. Today we will learn how to create subgraphs to group our node graphs, and we will learn how to create input and output parameters for subgraphs and how to navigate in the graph hierarchy. In the first three tutorials, we created this rather complex graph to generate a eroded mountain terrain. And now I'm going to look at the left part of our graph where we created the input noise function that we used as an input for our terrain generation. And in order to simplify this, I'm going to rectangle select all of these nodes and then click on the rightmost button in this toolbar, which creates a subgraph from the current selection. If I click, it will ask me to enter a name for the subgraph. I'm going to call that input or terrain shape. And if I click OK, it will create a subgraph called terrain shape that bundles all of these nodes together. This will invalidate the rest of the graph, but if I re-execute it, I can see that the result is still exactly the same. So content-wise, nothing changed. It's just that these func2d nodes have all been grouped into one subgraph called terrain shape. Now, compared to the other nodes, you can see that this subgraph, has an additional button at the bottom called enter, and it doesn't have the top button to show results. All these other nodes have a button on top to show results. The subgraph doesn't have that, but it has the enter button, and also you can see that the line, the white outline, is a little bit thicker than for the other nodes. If I click on enter, it will open that graph which shows all of the nodes that we grouped. And we can see the inputs for that subgraph here on the left side, and the outputs we can see here on the right side. I don't like the name max function. This was automatically given by the subgraph generator, and it's called max function because that is the name of the output port that this subgraph output is connected to. To remove that port, I'm going to left click and drag away from the port, and then reattach to this add output rectangle. This will create a new output port, and I can give it a new name. That's why I'm doing it, and I'm calling it basic shape. Okay, now the output has been added. Okay, to go back up to the top graph, to the root, I can use this button here, which will navigate up, or in this case I could also use this leftmost button, which will always navigate all the way to the top. Same thing in this case. Now, because we changed the name of that parameter, this connection has been removed automatically, and I'm going to reattach that. Okay, as a second subgraph, I'm going to combine all of these texturing nodes. Remember, we use these colorized with gradient nodes and the steepness map to generate the texture for our terrain. We'll re-execute because I invalidated when I made this connection. This is the texture. And I'm just going to select these 4 nodes after the erosion and hit subgraph from selection again. And I'm going to call that terrain texture. Okay, now we can see it automatically generated one output where the texture is used in our final texture terrain node. And it also generated 3 inputs automatically, 1 where the height map goes in, and 2 more where the flow map is used. I'm going to regroup and rename those inputs, so I'm going to enter the subgraph. And these two nodes, colorized with gradient, received the flow map as input. They both got an automatically generated input called input image. I'm going to remove those and instead create a new input by clicking on add input and dragging to the target, and that input will be called flow map, which is what our texture is basically based on. And the other colorized with gradient node gets the same flow map, so I can just use the same input. So I only need 2 inputs, not 3. The steepness map works with the height map because the input parameter for the steepness map is simply called image. The automatically generated input parameter was also called image. I'm going to remove that one and instead add a new input and call that height map. Okay, now if I navigate back up using this middle button, I can see that the connections to the new inputs have been removed because I changed that interface, I changed those inputs. So I have to reconnect the erosion result, the height map, to the height map input, and the flow map input. And we're done. Now if I execute the graph, I can see that in terms of content, still nothing has changed. But we have a much better overview because of these two subgraphs that now group several nodes together. Second advantage of using these subgraphs is that they can be reused. For instance, I could use the same texturing subgraph for a completely different terrain. Or I could use the basic terrain shape from this left subgraph and then work with a completely different type of erosion in another graph. In the next tutorial, we're going to look at our workspaces where we can see all these subgraphs that we have generated, and that's where we're going to open this window and work with the different subgraphs that have been generated. Thank you for watching.